I was a career changer. I came out of college with a biology degree, worked in healthcare.
Austin Belsack found himself wanting a career that was different than his science-based degree. With his resume not meeting the requirements listed for a technology job, he found a different way in.
Basically, for me, that was a focus on building relationships with people and finding more tangible ways to illustrate my value outside of a resume, outside of a cover letter.
He says it worked, and after 5 years working at Microsoft, he started his website, Cultivated Culture, to help people land the job they love. Here are some ways he says that you can rethink the application process. He says don't apply online because a typical job posting can generate around 250 resumes. He says of those resumes, only about 4 to 6 people get called for an interview, and then 1 gets hired. In other words, you have about a 2% chance of just getting an interview if you go that route.
So what I basically found was that I needed a new way to get in the door, and there were 2 ways that I went about that.
So he says find someone at that company to refer you. He says your chances can jump from that 2% to closer to 40%.
If we take a step back and analyze that, we have 75% of the market using online apps competing for that 2% chance of getting in the door. Whereas if we're focused on referrals, we're only competing with 10% of the pool for basically that 40 to 80% chance of landing the job.
All right, so you're probably like, how am I going to find someone to refer me at a company that I know nobody at? So obviously this is going to take some time and effort. Belsack says, find those in the hiring process. Send out about a dozen emails to those people and introduce yourself. Here's the thing, you may get a response from some and not from others, and that's okay. And then realize that those you do hear back from, some may refer you and some may not. So again, that's also okay. Have about 10 to 15 companies in mind and tailor the emails for the person you're talking to, not just asking for a referral. This whole process is about building a relationship with someone.
So essentially what we found is that if you start with a minimum of 150 people, you put yourself in a really good place to get all the way down that funnel and end up with a job offer, and then you can scale it up from there.
Overwhelmed yet? Remember, this is all part of the long game to get a job. He says by building those relationships first, getting hired from a referral can take closer to 3 months than the typical 6.
Yes, you have to be able to walk the walk, but it doesn't have to. You don't have to have already walked the walk in order to do it. You just have to know that you can and be able to sell the company on that as well.
So the second part of this is the question, what if you don't meet the requirements listed?
Essentially, if you can get out there and you can create your own experience, whether it's through freelancing, whether it's through content creation, whether it's through, taking courses and certifications, now all of a sudden you're much more competitive than you would be otherwise.
And finally, to put yourself ahead of others, do some research into the company.
You identify maybe a challenge, maybe an opportunity, something that's interesting to them that's also very relevant to the job that you would be applying for. You go out there and you brainstorm a couple of solutions, and then you come to the table and say, hey, look, I did my research. I know what you're struggling with. I know what your goals are. Here are some ideas that I think can help you solve that or achieve these goals.
So I know this sounds like a lot of work. Again, 10 to 15 companies, 10 to 15 people per company. The 150 mark of emails to hit and whatnot. But he says it pays off in the long run. If you can get one person to refer you, you're going to get seen better.
Absolutely. So, yeah. I mean, you got to have persistence, but he's got some great advice. So what are you working on for tomorrow?
So tomorrow we're going to talk about that resume. Then on Thursday, we're going to talk about interview tips. And then on Friday, the fun one, how to ask your boss for more money.
Oh, gosh. Awkward. What I dread.
It's actually easy to ask for a raise. It's getting the raise. It's getting the raise that's hard.